Doesn't matter whether your trip is good, whether they catch a lot of fish, whether they get a lot of photos, whether they have a horrible time. There's one thing that every client does at the end of their trip, and that's talk.
Welcome to Fish Nerds. It's a celebration of fish, fishing, and eating fish that is always interesting, usually funny, and mostly true. I'm Nate Hill of Hill Country Guides at www.whitemountainflyfishing.com, and here are the Fish Nerds.
Thanks. All right, I'm Clay, and today we talk about fish, fishing, and eating fish, and anything is fair game, and it's a good bet that waiting for winter will make me want to change hobbies to something else that's more boring, like waiting for food to cook in a crock pot, or watching grass grow, or paint dry, or fish grow, or whatever else we might want to do. And today we're hanging out with Nate Hill. Nate Hill is a licensed New Hampshire fishing guide, owner of Hill Country Guides. Right?
Yep.
Am I getting it right?
You got it.
If you're visiting New Hampshire and want a great fly guide, Nate, your guy, go to
www.whitemountainflyfishing.com.
Right. It's worth the drive to the White Mountains. There's more to do here besides shopping. Fishing is one of the draws.
They're shopping here?
That's the number one draw to the Mount Washington Valleys. Shopping. I would think fishing, but it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. No one cares about the mountains anymore. So this is part 3 in our series of becoming a fishing guide. We're going to chat the business of guiding today. We're going to talk about how does one make a living in this terrible fishing business. And that's why Nate's here, because he's figured some stuff out, and maybe we can learn a thing or two as we get going. This series is sponsored by New Hampshire Outdoor Learning Center, NHOutdoorlearning.com. This is where I went to guide school. And to be honest, there is no chance I would have passed New Hampshire's guide exam without going to guide school. Scott Jackson will teach you everything you need to know to pass New Hampshire's rigorous oral boards. He also will make sure you're an expert outdoorsman, and that's pretty much a requirement for becoming a guide. Speaking of which, Nate, I've always liked talking to you about guide school, and I want you to not guide school, actually nothing with guide school at all, but New Hampshire has a very rigorous guide program.
Yeah.
It's new in the last few years.
Yep.
It used to be pretty easy, I guess, to be a guide in the state.
I don't think it was ever easy. It was
Comparatively?
It was easier.
Yeah. They say Maine is one of the hardest.
Well, Maine's model is the model that New Hampshire's new test is based off of.
So we're trying to be Maine.
Right.
Right. And what do you think about this?
Well, I've guided in other states, and a lot of other states have every state has a different protocol when it comes to becoming a guide. But New Hampshire and Maine are known as the toughest in the country. And I guess that's, good if you want to toot your own horn and say, I got my Maine guides license or New Hampshire guides license. But for the economy of the state, I think it could maybe restrict the amount of guiding that can get done in the state.
Now, do you think there's enough customers in New Hampshire to have more guides? There's 80 guides in New Hampshire right now. Most don't guide at all, right?
Right. And I think that's kind of what you don't see is that, if there were 80 very active guides, I think there'd be plenty of people to pick up the demand. But, I run my own guide business. I have 2 guys working for me, and I'm trying to find other guides to work for me. And it's tough to get people licensed when the state only tests twice a year. And it's tough if somebody doesn't pass the test, because then they got to wait 6 months to take the test again. And they got to take 3 tests now, right? Or 2.
It's 2 tests. So it's a written 80-question exam, which is pretty easy.
Right.
And weird. Like a lot of questions.
Like what duck has a green feather on its right wing?
Yeah,
like
bizarre, meaningless questions in the business of guiding. You would expect it all to be safety questions. Like that's my expectation. Safety and
that's what I think
stuff,
is
right?
important. And I definitely, that's where I wanted to go is, I mean, obviously I think there's information, things that people should need to know to be a guide. And as a guide who hires other guides, I take my guides out and fish with them multiple times before I book them for trips, and just to make sure that they meet the requirements I have for a guide, which is, in my mind, a little different than what the state requires. I require my guides to have really good people skills, as well as knowing how to catch fish.
Well, it's funny you said it, because every single guide I speak to, tells me fishing guiding is not about fishing. It's a customer service job. It's about making people happy.
Yeah, I'd say it's mostly that. You know, if you can't catch fish, you're not going to make it. But if you can catch fish and you can't work with a wide range of personalities, you're not going to make it either. So it's a meshing of both, and I think that's what makes it tough. Is there's plenty of people out there who are really into fishing and can go out and catch fish on their own, but can they get, you know, a 7-year-old and his mom to catch a few fish and have a good time and stay safe, you know? And that's what makes it a business.
That's the challenge.
Yeah.
That's the challenge. So, well, thank you for that insight. New Hampshire guide test was very challenging. And I agree with you, by the way. The biggest drawback, I don't mind the test so much. Like, I actually, on a personal level, a barrier to entry to be able to wear that patch and have the bragging rights and say, okay, I've got a skill set I've earned, you can trust me because I earned this. But the twice a year is a terrible drawback.
Yeah, it just seems, and I think part of the problem is the state's trying to, you know, they've got, how many people were at your test?
3. What do you mean?
Like
the
in
test?
the oral board.
How many
people was the state paying to be there?
3.
3?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think that they're trying to save money and only having these tests certain dates so they don't have to pay.
Well, they just have the model backwards. Here's the model.
Yeah.
If you pass the test and you buy your guide license, you pay $100.
Right.
If you do,
that is what it is, right?
If you do not pass the test, you pay $0. What if they said it costs $100 to take the test?
Right.
And we're going to test 6 people a day.
Right.
There's their money.
Right.
It can pay for itself. They just have their funding backwards. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Because I have a partner, Vinny, is going to go into business with me. He runs Ben & Jerry's ice cream shop. He cannot take the guide test in summertime because he's
slammed.
He's slammed. So the next testing date is late February. We're opening an ice fishing business this month.
Yeah.
He can't work until the end of the season. And if he fails,
then he can't work again until next year. Yep.
So he can't. First of all, he's better friggin' pass the test because I have patience for this.
Well, you never know. I mean, the test, like, you know, we talked about off camera, off mic, is it's subjective in some ways, and I think that you know, you can take the course and know your stuff, but if one of the testers doesn't like the way you answer something, they can fail you on anything they want to, and that's what's frustrating to me. Is I don't mind the testing, and if it's twice a year, I don't love it, but the biggest thing that gets to me a little bit is I just would like a clear explanation to the people who take it. If they don't pass, what do they need to work on? And I've just had personal experience where that wasn't clearly articulated to some candidates.
Oh, no, I'm curious. That makes me want to talk to someone who's failed the test and see if they went line by line. Here's where you messed up, because that would be helpful.
Yeah, well, I know one individual who said they did not do that.
Same what I'm talking about?
Yeah. He said that they just kind of said, you just got to think outside the box more. And I'm sure there's some legitimacy to whatever they were speaking of, but if they could just, I don't know, articulate.
Well,
isn't that the point of taking a test, is to know where you're at and to know. Well, that's what we.
Well, the other thing is thinking outside the box is one thing, but when the box keeps moving, right? So they set up these scenarios. It's like playing Dungeons and Dragons. Were you a D&D?
See, I haven't taken. I took the test when it was just the written exam. So I haven't taken.
That would be easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I kind of grandfathered in now.
I hate to like I almost like, wouldn't you want just to see if you could pass it?
I'm not going to go for it.
No, because why would you? Why would you?
I might try to do the main test someday, but right now I don't have any need to. I have plenty of business in New Hampshire. So.
Yeah, that's a whole other game, right? So yeah, but I'd be curious about if a lot of the guides who were grandfathered in could pass the oral boards now, because they do a lot of things like they'll set you up with let's say a scenario like a guy's walking out in the woods with you, he steps on a bee's nest, the bees all sting him. What do you do? And then you ask questions back. Okay, well, is he having a reaction? Is he doing this? And
that's what I think makes it a tough test. Is you've got to, in a real situation, you're just going to react. You're going to see what's happening.
Yeah.
Whereas they're asking you to ask these follow-up questions. I mean, I had a client fell in the river in late October. Well, he's wearing waders. So the first thing I tell him is take your waders off. And I had dry clothes with me. I gave him dry clothes, and I said, if you start to shake, we're going to cut the trip short. If you're okay, we're going to keep going. And he was fine. And I talked to a guide candidate who had a similar question on his test. And he said the first thing I told the testers was I would have the guy, change his clothes. And they said, well, what about taking his waders off?
Oh, that was me.
Oh, that was you.
You and I had this conversation.
Okay, yeah, right. So
that was exactly the scenario.
And
I'm like, well, that's how
that's
you take your pants
right.
off.
So obviously you would.
Yeah, but they've got check boxes in their little clipboards. And one of the check boxes is take your waders off. And mine was change your clothes.
Right.
Which to me is how do you get your pants off? But they want to hear the exact phrasing.
Yeah, and see, that's where I think, it may not be accurate to how you'd respond in a real situation. Like, obviously, if I was taking the test, and I might not have thought, I might have said take his clothes off, thinking in my head, logically, that would include waders.
Well, it does.
Yeah, it does.
By the way, I'd be impressed with someone who could take their pants off without getting the waders
that
off.
would be impressive.
That's a good move. So, by the way, if anyone wants to give it a shot, put a video up on fishnerds.com. We'd love to see it. So just send it to us. But yeah, it's a great thing. So, I want to hear what your business looks like. First of all, when you started the business, did you have a business plan written, or did you just go and hang a shingle and start selling trips?
Yeah, it's funny. You when we talked before this meeting, you were like, I just want to know about your business plan. And I'm like, what was my business plan? Because I kind of, it started for me as a hobby. Like a lot of, I think, people start doing what they really like is as a hobby, right?
So guiding as a hobby.
Yeah, guiding as a hobby. And I was guiding for North Country Angler. The first year I guided, they had me doing about 20 trips. And then...
That's a lot for part-time.
Yeah. Well, the shop has been around for a long time, and when I fell into it, I was kind of at a point where they had lost a couple guides who moved away. So I kind of fell into the head guide position the first year. The owner was doing probably close to as many trips as I was, but he was running a shop. So, if he could do a trip, he'd do it. But if he couldn't, it was to me. And then, I was doing that every summer. I was teaching high school full time. And as I continued to guide every summer, I saw the business increasing. And it got to the point where the shop owner was getting older, and he said, listen, Nate, you're doing so much business. We're going to need to buy more gear. We don't feel like it's worth our time to try to book all these trips, pay gear, pay your insurance. Do you want to just take over the guiding aspect of the whole shop? So that's where I started my own website, just as a backup in case, because I didn't know if the shop would continue on. If they sold, and I didn't have a website, and they sold it to somebody who was going to run a ski shop or something different, then I'd be kind of out of any publicity. So I started my own website, and the shop started kind of bouncing people to my website for guiding. And from there, I was able to kind of write my own fishing reports. And then as the business increased, I saw that I had a potential to actually do it full time. And that's when I decided I needed to do more than just guide families in the summer. And I bought a boat. And I guess the piece you were asking, what was your business model? Well, I realized that if I got a raft, I could guide on some water in this area that nobody was guiding on, and I could increase my kind of span of who I could guide, because experienced anglers are more interested in going out in a boat and fishing big water, and so then I was able to provide that. And my business increased. I think in 2014 or 2012, I did 85 trips. 2013, we did 99.
That's a lot.
Yeah. 2015 was 153, and that was the first year I had another guide, and he did 10 trips, so I did like 143. Mm-hmm. And then this year, I just ran the numbers. We did 190 trips, and I did 154.
That's amazing.
So yeah, so it's at the point where I'm kind of getting to, I can do a couple more trips a year maybe, but this is every day from basically I'm guiding every day from June through the middle of July, and then there's little holes here or there. Maybe I get a 1 day off to breathe. But
and do you make enough money in your season to get through winter?
well, that's the goal. And last year, the other piece of I guess my growing business model, if you will, last year I started going to Arkansas on the White River, which if you don't know about it, it's probably the best trophy brown trout river in the country. People don't think of Arkansas for trout.
Never. No, anywhere in the South, we don't
yeah.
really think trout. So.
But it comes out of Bull Shoals Reservoir, one of the bigger reservoirs in the country, biggest tailwater. A tailwater being a dam that releases water from down deep in the lake. So even though they're at a southern latitude, they've got 50-degree water year round. And
That's amazing.
They have a ton of food in the river, and the brown trout grow to world record size. They've shocked, electrofished a world record fish.
So now that you're married.
Right.
Sorry, ladies, he's married. Now that you're married, congratulations. Last week, right?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So now you're married. You're going to have kids someday. Those trips are gone.
Well, yes, that's so if you want to go to Arkansas, I'm going to be going this year, and we'll see what happens in the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Arkansas piece though is more than just going there. Last year I went and did a few trips. This year I've got 15 trips booked there. We go in March, which is a kind of an in-between time, as you know, for fishing in New Hampshire, and it's prime time in Arkansas. So we'll be there this March into the first week of April. The cool thing about doing trips in Arkansas is that I get a lot of clients from down south in our summer. And in our fall, when it's boiling hot down there, they don't want to be in 110-degree heat fishing. So I've already seen some transfer back and forth. Clients, we go down there when it's cold here. They come up here when it's hot there. So that's the bigger. I'm trying to get my name, nationalized so that we can get more clients from other places.
Well, you've hit the big time. You're on the Fish Nerds podcast.
Oh, yeah.
So we reach everywhere except Arkansas, which is good. So the worldwide.
Then I'm
reach.
fully covered.
You got it everywhere. So that's really interesting. But you didn't go in with like I'm going to do this and then this, and I'm going to earn all this money.
It's funny because I did a rough estimate of what I thought. Obviously I wanted to. At first, I didn't think it was possible. We weren't charging a lot when I first started doing trips, and
I was going to ask you about that. So now I see your prices on your website. It's not cheap.
Yeah. It's not cheap, but it's kind of where everyone else is.
It's in the zone.
It's in the zone.
But first year out, you had a lower rate.
I mean, when the shop first started, I think they hadn't updated their rates in a long time. So they were at 1990 rates or whatever, and
which was like what?
Like $120 for a half day. $120.
That's a free trip.
Yeah, basically. I mean, that's my my expenses are higher than that
for a day.
For a day trip.
Really?
Oh yeah, with lunch and gas and flies and yeah. I mean, it adds up.
What's funny? I'm working on an upcoming show, a future show. I was going to do a 4-part series, but I'm finding that building the business is bigger than I thought, and I want every piece to be included.
Yeah.
I'm doing a whole show on the expenses of being a guide. Because every time I turn a computer on, I'm going,
I need that.
I got to pay for insurance.
And that's the biggest thing I learned going into it was when I was working for the shop, they kind of took care of the rods and the gear. I bought my own flies, but now with, I got a boat, I kind of need a new trailer. Every year there's a big expense you don't expect. It's either a new vehicle, a new boat, or a new trailer, or a new set of waders or new rods. Because you got to have. My thing is, I wanted to provide a top-notch experience, and you need top-notch gear to do that.
That's my plan in future years.
Yeah.
First year, make some money so I can buy the better gear.
You got to work your way into it. I think as long as you're always, on that movement to try to improve what you're doing and what you have. I mean, it'd be a big mistake to buy top end stuff your first year out and then not
make any money,
right. and then you'd be out of business.
Right. Well, we'll save that. We'll have another conversation about pricing, because actually I'm very curious about that. But that's a whole another aspect. So going into it, though, you didn't know what to expect. And
Yeah,
it
so
grew.
I guess I kind of got off track there,
Yeah.
but
How dare you?
I I did look at, if I do X amount of trips at X price, can I make enough money to get by doing something less serious in the winter, like I'm ski instructing, which it's fun, but it's not lucrative.
$7 an hour.
Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to pull off. And I do want to increase the amount of writing I do and the amount of I'm looking at designing some flies for some companies. So there's different ways to
We have
patch things together.
other people in
winter.
our podcast world who design flies and have been in magazines.
Yeah.
Michael Frank is a guide in North Carolina,
Cool.
also a teacher.
Yeah.
And he just got his flies into magazines, which is cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of other ways you can make the money. A lot of guides do, like you said, write on the side, trying to increase revenue. There's not a lot of money in writing,
No.
but it all adds.
No,
in.
but it's also publicity, and I'm at a point right now where for the New Hampshire season, I'm almost guiding as much as I can. I mean, I'm doing 140 trips in almost as many days. So our season's from basically May through October, and I do a few trips in April and a few trips in November. This year I did more trips in November than I ever
I
have.
saw that, which was rare. I mean, a lot of people are fishing November this year who I don't usually see fishing in November.
Yeah.
So
I think there's always been fish to be caught in November, and I've gotten better and better at catching them and reliably. Because you're not going to go out there and whack fish left and right like you do in September, even early October. You have to know it's a different game. And
and as long as the clients know, that's what to
But
expect.
you can catch some big fish, and we got I got a 26-inch rainbow trout.
I
this
saw that.
November,
I saw
so-
that photo. We'll put that up on fishnerds.com so people can go take a look at it.
It's worth the effort sometimes.
It really is. Now, have you ever taken because our rivers open back up in January 1. I know you usually go fishing in January, but do you ever bring clients out?
I haven't yet.
Yeah.
Last year I had a lot of inquiries Christmas week because the weather was so warm. But that's something that as I get more interest, when people ask, I'm going to go if I think we can catch fish.
Sure.
But I'm not going to take somebody out if I think they're going to have a miserable time. And
So
not
we could
catch
do a
anything.
combo day.
Yeah.
You can go out. Let's go fish. Ospey River in the morning. In the afternoon, let's ice fish Ospey Lake. Do a full day, 2 kinds of fishing. Fly fishing in the morning, ice fishing in the afternoon.
No, we can talk more about that.
Total win, right? Partnership.
Yeah.
So, and if you ever want to come out with me, I'd love to have you
Yeah,
on
I'd
the
love
ice.
to get you out with a fly rod and see what
Yeah.
happens.
And but we can. I want to explore with you tying ice flies. And,
Absolutely.
And fishing with
Yeah,
artificial
because
through the ice.
and there's, like I was talking to you earlier about these horizontal flies for fishing ponds. It's basically an ice fishing style
exactly
of fly.
the same. Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to compare and look at these ice fishing jigs and tie some flies on them.
Yeah, and by the way, that mop stuff you guys made a few weeks ago at the Liars and Tires group would
those
be
are neat.
perfect
Yeah.
white perch thing. And I started thinking more
Absolutely.
about them. And so they tied these mop. They took mop, like fuzzy mop bits, and they put them on a hook basically and tied feathers on them. Was that roughly what it is?
Yeah, well,
no
it's
feathers, but
I don't know if you've seen the mops themselves. They're these
microfiber.
It's kind of like a yarn. There's a yarn material called baby blanket yarn that's almost the same thing, but the mop, gives it this nice rounded end that makes it look just like a grub.
It looks
or,
just like that. But
or
I
any
was
kind
thinking
of like
though,
big bug.
I was thinking they're so absorbent,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of fish under the ice are scent oriented. So what if you took those things and you dip them in like?
That's where you go from fly fishing to something else.
Hey, we're on the ice. Who cares? You want to catch fish?
I know.
But I'm just thinking. I'm always thinking.
We always debate about is
Yeah.
this still a fly because it's so it's so much like a jig.
It's a big hunk of plastic now. Yeah.
But I'm like, well, as long as it doesn't have scent, it's a fly.
Right.
But,
Well,
yeah.
so I'm no longer talking.
No,
fly,
but you're
but they're
you're on
absorbent.
yeah.
Dip it
yeah.
in some like oil from like a sardine can.
Oh yeah.
And drop that down for lake trout all day. They'll come
Yep.
right in. So anyway, whole other thing. So that's really insightful
Yeah.
stuff. I'm going to move forward here a little bit. We got to interview Tim Moore. Do you know Tim Moore?
I know the name. The name's sounds very familiar to me, but I haven't met Tim.
Tim's a good guy. I we've been doing work with Tim for years. Before he was Tim Moore, we knew Tim. I interviewed him at a coffee shop a few weeks ago and asked him about his business model of guiding. So, Tim, we're going to be talking about the business of guiding. Can you tell us, just for fun, first year out of the gate, what was your business plan?
I didn't have one.
I didn't have one. And that's where I'm at right now with my partner. I said, let's make a business plan. He goes, I have a plan. We go fishing. They give us money. We spend the money. Was that your plan?
Yeah. I figured, I'd hang a shingle and people would start beating my door down, and that didn't happen.
You started off as a Seacoast Guide Service.
Yep.
And tell me about, so when you first launched, you hung your shingle out, Seacoast Guide Service. I've seen pictures of you at expos with your tiny table and little banner.
Yeah.
Tell me about getting the initial trips booked. What did that look like?
I practically gave them away. It was tough. I didn't know what I was doing. Even I'd been on guided trips. I knew guides, but until you get out there and you do it, and you make some mistakes, and you learn. You learn what your client, because everybody's clientele I think is different. Everybody markets to a different clientele, and some people, like now, my clientele seems to be on the wealthier side, and all they care about is being comfortable. If they're comfortable and they don't catch fish, it's better than being uncomfortable and catching fish. But it was slow. It was super slow, and I didn't book very many trips. I gave a lot of trips away just to get photos and get some experience. And at the end of the year, when we went over how much I'd made, it averaged to be 2 cents an hour.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's more than the fish nerds earn. So nice job on that. So first year out, you didn't make a whole lot of money. And do you think now, if you could go into it knowing what you know now, if you were writing a business plan for a fishing guide, full-time guide, what would that look like?
Keep your full-time job and guide whenever you can until you build a reputation and a clientele. Get the word out there, because word of mouth is huge. Word gets around. It's a very small industry.
So if you're doing a terrible job guiding, people will know.
They will know.
They will know, and they'll tell everybody.
They tell it. I've heard probably 100 different guides say the same thing. Doesn't matter whether your trip is good, whether they catch a lot of fish, whether they get a lot of photos, whether they have a horrible time. There's one thing that every client does at the end of their trip, and that's talk.
That's really good to know. And I like that, starting off, keeping your full-time job. Now, you were working at Suds and Soda when you first started guiding.
I was not.
You were not? Where were you?
I owned a construction business.
You owned a business?
Yeah.
So you're not new at the business game?
No.
And when you
not
launched,
much better at it either.
No, when you launched your fishing business, did you immediately quit your construction job, or did you keep it while you were guiding?
No, I kept it, but I stopped taking on as much work because I thought I was going to get rich guiding. Luckily, I still had the business to fall back on when I realized that I actually got to the point where I had decided I wasn't going to be a fishing guide for a living. I was just going to do it to make enough money to buy a new fishing pole or buy a new gun or something like that.
So each trip would just fund the next trip. You get $200 bucks, I'm going to buy a new rod. I get $200 bucks and buy a new Vexilar or whatever.
Exactly.
It is.
Yep.
That's kind of where my model's looking like right now. Is everything we earn is going to go back into buying new equipment. Yep. So then you left construction to work at Suds and Soda. Did you wait till you had enough clients to support the back end of the business to do that?
No, actually, I left construction to go to college.
Oh.
To be a wildlife biologist.
Really? Did you get your degree?
No.
Oh.
I quit. I dropped out of school to be a fishing guide.
No kidding.
So I was construction, did that for 20 years, got my guide's license, started guiding, realized within a year that I wasn't anywhere near being able to make a living doing it. And I didn't have the resources. I didn't have the equipment. If you wanted to just jump into it and do it, you'd probably have to spend about $60,000 right up front.
To get where you're at now.
Yeah.
So because you were walking people out on the ice.
Walk on trips on the ice.
Yep.
Yeah. Only hunting and ice fishing trips. Then we've got obviously kayaks. And then I left construction. I went to college to be a wildlife biologist. Went to UNH, and while I was at UNH, went to work at Suds and Soda at the tackle shop, and then financial aid fell through. And because I got married and our income went up, and I was going to take a year off and try to figure out how to pay for the rest of my
I used to be a
degree.
college advisor, and I would advise everyone who's going to college, don't get married.
Yeah,
You
I wish
know.
they'd have told me that.
Especially if you're a single parent.
I wish they'd have told me not to spend all my loan money too.
Yep. Oh, I made that mistake also.
Yeah.
Because you got to pay it all back.
Yeah. And so in that year of working at Suds and trying to figure out what I was going to do, that was my wife said, "Are you even going to go back to school? Because your guide business is just blown up." And it was just, it was the right time.
Was it still Seacoast Guide Service at this time?
Actually, it was when I rebranded to Tim Moore Outdoors is when it really blew up.
Let's talk about rebranding. Because Dave and I were having this conversation a minute ago. Because I'm going to use the Fish Nerd's name. He goes, "Why don't you speak Clay Groves Outdoors?" And I don't know what that means. And so you became Tim Moore Outdoors. You went from Seacoast Guide Service, Tim Moore Outdoors. Why did you do that, and what did it do for your business?
Well, I was building the Seacoast Guide Service brand, and at the same time, companies like Clam and Ice Team and Vexilar were building the Tim Moore Outdoors brand, or the Tim Moore brand, and they were putting a lot of emphasis and a lot of money and marketing into me as an angler, and there was always this disconnect between who I was and Seacoast Guide Service. And I would even have clients that would come fishing with me and then realize partway in that I was the guy they read about in the magazines. So I said, I'm going to rebrand, going to try to close that gap, make it all one. And as soon as I did, boom. Yeah. And it was also, I was 8 years in. So it wasn't like I opened Tim Moore Outdoors and boom. It was 8 years of experience plus the national exposure that I got.
Right, and you get lots of that now.
Yeah, I'm
You're
pretty
like
lucky.
Fish famous.
Yeah, legend in my own mind.
So part of your business, so now you make a living fishing.
Yep.
But not just fishing.
No.
Fishing is like when it's busy right now, this time of year when you're lake trout fishing, you're booked every day. But
Yep.
how do you make ends meet when you're not leading trips?
I keep many irons in the fire.
Tell us about those irons.
Writing. I write for several different publications. I'm always. It's just like construction. You can't just sit back and let the work come to you. You got to go out there and find ways to make money. So I get paid by sponsors to work in stores certain times of year, like December. There's nothing to guide for me in December. Luckily, that's the biggest in-store month for all my ice fishing companies. So I get paid on weekends to go and sit in these stores and talk to people about ice fishing and products and what's new.
Which is neat, too, because you're doing that, but people are meeting you, and you're also able to book trips through that as well, right? So it kind of feeds it, kind of a circular feeder going on there.
Yeah.
So what does sponsorship mean to a fishing guide?
It varies. It varies widely.
Because you're like, right now I'm looking at you, and you've got Clam, Vexilar, Old Town, Gemini jerseys, Ice Team, Navionics, Here's My Gear, and lots of other stuff on your shirt.
Yep.
What's all that? What does it mean?
It
Why would you do
varies. Some of it is discounts on product, which are useful in my guide service.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it is free product, which is also useful in my guide
Even
service. It
more
keeps the
useful.
overhead down.
Oh, sure.
And then some of them are paid sponsorships that give me a cash retainer once a year or twice a year, things like that.
Just to keep you going.
Mm-hmm.
And would you recommend out of the gate people try to seek out sponsorships or build their business first and then seek it out, or kind of find their own way? How'd you do that?
It's a common sense thing. I mean, if you I don't hope it doesn't sound wrong. If you're a nobody in the fishing industry, if nobody knows who you are, and you start beating down doors saying, "Please give me sponsorship money," they're going to say, "Who are you? We don't know who you are."
Right.
So if you're working in the industry, I had been working in the industry for several years before I started beating on doors, and I still had to beat people's doors down. I beat Clam's door down for 3 years before I finally got on their pro staff.
Send them letters. Please consider me.
Every year. I'd
Yeah.
email them every year. I'm still here. My last email before I got picked up just said, "I'm not going away until you tell me to go away."
And that was it.
And then I got picked up the following year.
So it's really like a sales business. You really are just selling yourself and trying to make sure people know what you're doing.
Yeah, because here's the thing. People they look at pro staff positions and are like, "Oh, I want to be a professional angler." Well, that's totally different than being a promotional staff.
Right.
And if these promotional staff is a marketing tool, it's a way to sell product. And if you can't sell product for these companies, they have no interest in you because you cost them money.
Right, you're costing them money. But so they looked at you, and you've got your Tim Moore Outdoors guide service. You got your Tim Moore Outdoors TV and your YouTube channel and all this stuff, and you leverage all that to get more and more promotional stuff.
Yep. And once you get in it starts to build on itself if you're smart. I think I made a few mistakes along the way with associations, but for the most part, I went to Clam, and then Vexillars is very tightly partnered with Clam, and so I went to Vexillar, and I was using Vexillars anyways, so that all seemed to make sense. And so there are kind of family groups of businesses out there that kind of help each other out.
So if you're guiding, let's say you're like me, and you buy all your equipment used, and you have a mishmash of equipment, does that get you in trouble? So for example, I've got all your old Clam gear.
Yep.
Which is the truth. But I happened to pick up a bunch of used Hummingbirds, Ice 35 fish finders. Now, if I'm courting Clam, would I do well to sell those fish finders off and buy Vexillars, so I already have this kind of match, or would that hurt me?
Clam won't care.
They don't care.
No. I mean, not that they don't care. They would love to see you using Vexillar because of that partnership. Mm-hmm. But there are Ice Team pros that don't use Vexillars.
And they just don't.
It's not really talked about much, but
right.
They'd much rather they were, keep it in the family, so to speak.
Sure.
But there are, some pretty big names that are Ice Team pros that use, Markham or Humminbird.
Doesn't matter.
It is what it is.
Yeah, and you can't control all those. There's too many variables to keep it all straight.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, if you were to give like one piece of advice to someone going into guide service who wants to be a fishing guide, what would it be?
I already gave it. Keep your day job.
Keep your day job. All right, so I'll make sure my wife hears that.
Yeah, keep your day job until guiding interferes with your day job, and you'll know when it's time to leave.
Just wait.
When I left Suds, I couldn't juggle my schedule at Suds and my schedule guiding anymore. One of them had to go.
You're like working 7-8 days a week and 8 days a week.
Yeah. I was cross-eyed almost every day. I was so tired all the time. And my wife said it's time. One of them's got to go.
Good advice.
So, yeah.
Well, cool. That's Tim from Tim Moore Outdoors. And you can find links to all Tim's stuff at fishnerds.com. All right. So thanks, Tim Moore. You can find more about Tim at timmooreoutdoors.com or on YouTube, Tim Moore Outdoors TV, or anywhere clam products are sold. I guess he's like the biggest clam pro on earth right now. So he's all super famous. This show is funded by you, our listeners, and we need more support. And by more support, we mean money. We need your cash. If you have a few extra bucks a month, like $4, head to patreon.com/fishnerds and throw $1 per episode into the hat. That money goes directly into paying to keep this show on the internet, and we honestly cannot do this show without listener support. If you donate at the $5 per show level, you'll be sent a super warm fleece-lined Fish Nerds beanie. I gave you one for free today, Nate.
Yes, thank you
nice,
for that.
Right?
It is.
Yeah, I
gave you a
Hill
hat.
Country hat too, but it's a nice warm winter hat. You'll get those in time for ice fishing, and we have some brand new Patreon supporters, and we like to say all their names on the show. So if you want to be part of the show, throw some money in the hat. And so thank you, Michael Steffen, Akito Dan from I think he's from Japan. He's giving us some money. Michael Crooker, who's booked a fishing trip with me already. Michael Frank, who he's a fly fishing guide. We just talked about him a minute ago in North Carolina. He's also could be part of our show now. He's one of our new correspondents. And Reed Sutter. So thank you guys for your money, and we need it. So keep it coming. Go to patreon.com/fishnerds or go to fishnerds.com, look for the Patreon link, and give us your $1. Makes a difference. All right. And we bumped into Richard Yvonne from Twin Maple Outdoors, who runs a guide service out in the Bangor, Maine region of Maine. He has a lodging service, and he does not just fishing guiding, but all kinds of other wilderness guides as well. And we asked him about his business model. FishNerds.com here with Richard Yvonne from Twin Maple Outdoors. Richard, where are you located?
Hi, Clay. We're located in Bradford, Maine, which is, if you took a dart and you threw it at a map of Maine, we're just about in the center of Maine, 30 miles north of Bangor.
Right, which, by the way, Maine is huge. If people haven't been to Maine, they got to get there. It's impossible to understand how big it is until you try to travel to Bangor. But, your guide service gets lots of attention, and it's a beautiful business. And what I want to ask you about is, what is your business model? Do you make a full living just guiding, So what does your guide business look like, and then how do you supplement when you're not actually taking people fishing?
Okay, well, basically, Clay, I am a full-time guide, which kind of puts me in a weird position as far as making money. Well, I try to make as much money as I can during the season, obviously. On the off-season, which I'm working on right now.
Well, let's hang on. Let's clarify the season. You are a river guide, mostly, right?
Well, I am a 4-season Maine guide. I do hunting, fishing, and recreation.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I do recreation with families. I do waterfall hikes, ice cave hikes.
Oh, that's cool.
I do tracking, and I do nature hikes with tree plant identification. So it's a little of everything. I basically love the outdoors, and I embrace everything that Maine Outdoors has to offer. Basically, is what I do. Yes, I do a lot of fishing. That's probably my primary is fishing because it's the longest season we have here in Maine, and then obviously the ice fishing is a different time of year. But I'm trying to work on growing that part of the business. So in between fishing, I'm taking folks out kayaking. I'm taking them out moose safaring. I'm also then comes the fall time. I'm doing moose hunts, deer hunts. Partridge, which most people in the United States call it rough grouse. So I'm doing a little of everything. I'm trying to immerse myself into everything I know how to do and share it with other folks that of all walks of life.
So it's really cool because you're diverse enough, especially out in where you're out in Mill and Maine, where you can do all this kind of variety of stuff. How long have you been doing it full time, where that's your full time, your only means of employment?
I'm going on 5 years.
So relatively still new.
It is. When I first started, I was substitute teaching. So K through second grade, I was doing some subbing. I keep myself busy building my lodge, which we launched April 1st.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
So I did a lot of the work myself. I did the heating, the air conditioning, the flooring, the plumbing, electrical. I did a lot of that myself, and to save money, but it was a good learning experience, and it gave me really good. In the wintertime, it gave me something to work on. So right now, I'm at the point of growing my business. So I am year-round employed. It's a tough nut to crack when you're just starting out, but I'm just keeping myself immersed in that and trying to apply myself, getting folks. Letting people know what I do and where I'm doing it. And so far, so good. So I'm just keep my fingers crossed. And of course, I have a lot of help from a lot of great people. Our fishing network, I'm getting help from just everybody you can possibly name, very supportive. They're either coming to see me or they're supporting me through social media.
Yeah, that's one thing I found with the whole fishing community is it really is tight. If you reach out to somebody, they support each other. And I think if one person succeeds, we're all kind of coming along.
Yeah, I find it a really, really close-knit family where, we all have the same passion. We're all sharing that same passion. We want to see everybody succeed. So as much as I want to see myself succeed, I want to see, I want to see Fish Nerds. I want to see Go Fish Dan. I want to see, MaineTunaFishing.com. I want to see everybody succeed at their business, and whatever we can do to help each other out and grow together is that's my goal.
Yeah, it's a really, really nice thing to be doing, and it's one thing I've always really liked about the industry. And I'm learning more now that I'm a guide. I'm learning more about that. So you're making your full-time living at that, which is really exciting and not common. I mean, most people I know who guide have to supplement a lot. What do you do in your downtime?
Well, I'm in downtown. I'm repairing, marketing. I'm going out, literally hitting the streets and selling myself.
Mm-hmm.
A part of that is promoting the state of Maine, through the Visitors Bureau for the Maine Highlands. Mm-hmm. As you know, I'm part of that. So I'm trying to, help the state in general. Just get people, hey, this is the last frontier in the Northeast. Come to Maine and enjoy what we have.
It really is. What is your number one, like, if you were to give like one piece of marketing advice to a new guide, what would that be?
I think the best thing anybody can do is, first of all, on their business model, I mean, you have to have customer service skills. You have to, if you're just starting out in your marketing, get yourself out there, talk to people. Word of mouth is your best advertisement. I find that word of mouth for me is absolutely the best. So, customer service skills, really, marketing is, you're going to sell yourself if you can have those people skills to talk to people, find out what they want, listen to what they're trying to get out of their experience with you. And then, be honest with them. If you can't do it, you can't do it. If you can do it, or there's limitations, you need to be honest, forthright with people. I feel like that's the best model to have. And, if somebody's willing to do something that you've never done before, you want to do it, then that's great too, as long as you both have that understanding. There's just so much out there to do and so much to learn. So as a guide, you're going out there, you're hitting the streets, but you're talking to people, you're selling yourself. So as far as marketing goes, that's really a way to be. Social media, you've got to look at everybody as a potential, customer. Mm-hmm. So you could be gassing up your vehicle at the gas pump and somebody will come up to you and go, oh, hey, that's a really nice boat. And you start talking about boats, and the first thing you know, they're booking a trip with you. Which is what you want. Exactly. We want that. But I mean, I guess the moral of the story is that, don't discount any possibility out there when you're out in the public or you're at a social event or wherever, negativity, stay away from any types of negativity out there, whether it be social media, no matter what. I try not to even talk about politics on social media. Yeah, it's a tough divide. I've been struggling with that myself. Well, I just think that if we I know when people look at you, oh, you have the perfect life because you're keeping things so positive. Well, everybody has their struggles, you know what I mean? I mean, it's not easy, I'm fortunate that I have a great support system. I have my wife I owe everything to. I have two wonderful kids, they're supportive and they're enthusiastic. So I'm very blessed. I'm very thankful. But any advice I can give a new guide is, obviously, do what you're comfortable with and what you really know. That's how you should start. And then, as you progress and you get more confident, you build your skill set, then you can add on to what you do. I've been very fortunate because I had a mentor in my life. I had a master Maine guide, which is my uncle. He was my mentor, and I've learned so much from him, and how to be in the outdoors, appreciate everything it has to offer. And he just gave me a great skill set. Working in corporate America for 30 years, that developed my customer service skills. So it's a matter of melding, the knowledge that you get out in the woods with your customer service skills. It takes, salesmanship. It takes, I didn't mention the fact too, the more you can fix on your own, the more you can work on your own stuff. Obviously, you're going to save money. You're going to make yourself successful at doing that as well. That's perfect. Now, one more question for you, because I'm curious about this myself, and I'm kind of getting started off, and I got flyers, I got a Facebook page, I've been hitting the pavement, talking to people, I'm doing fishing seminars, all this kind of stuff to get the word out. And I'm looking at spending money on marketing. If I was going to spend money, where's the best place for you? Where's been the best place to spend money on marketing your business? Well, obviously, you really have to have a good brochure, and you have to have a good website. Right. I think those are pretty much the basic fundamentals of starting a business. So if you can't do your own website, find somebody that can help you, or have somebody do it if you can afford to do that. Create a really good brochure that's going to really give you a positive image, because that brochure, when it gets into the hands of somebody, that's what's talking to them. So have a really good brochure, have a really good website, have a good form of communication with your customers. My customers call me direct. They want a trip, they call me right on my cell phone. I'm a small businessman. I'm a one-man band, so I pride myself on personalized customer service. So if you have a guide that's not working for somebody else, he's working for himself. I think, in my opinion, what's been successful for me is to be able to relate to people on a one-on-one basis and have that open line of communication with your customers.
Perfect. And where can people, if I'm going to Maine, I want to book you, where do I find you?
You can find me on social media. You can find me on the web at twinmapleoutdoors.com. You just put Twin Maple Outdoors in the browser, and I should pop right up for it. I have a good bio on my website. People can learn a little bit about my background. What sparked me on becoming a guide. What's my background? Where did I learn all this stuff from? So that's what I mean about a good website. So you can contact me at 207-907-9151.
Perfect. And we'll put links. We'll put links on all at fishnerds.com to you. And so my hope is that people who want to become a guide are following along with this series I put together on how to become a fishing guide. Are you open to new guides emailing you or reaching out on social media and asking for advice and opinions on stuff?
Actually, I get that all the time, Clay, and I absolutely welcome that.
Good, because I'll be calling you.
No, I do, and if I don't know something, I'll tell that person, hey, I don't know that, but I can see if I can find out, or put them in touch with the proper resource to find out the information. I certainly don't know everything, but what I do know, I'm more than happy to share with people.
Hey, perfect. Hey, thank you so much. And again, go to twinmapleoutdoors.com or fishnerds.com, and you can get links to Richard's stuff. So, perfect. So that's it. You've listened to a couple of fish nerds when you should have been fishing.
We'd like to thank our families for supporting us while we podcast, go on fishing quests, and do all sorts of silly things that nerds do. If you would like to support Fish Nerds, you can go to patreon.com and search for Fish Nerds and help us crowdfund this podcast.
Special thanks to Tim Moore from TimMooreOutdoors.com, Richard Yvonne from Twin Maple Outdoors, and of course, Nate Hill, WhiteMountainFlyFishing.com. Nate, thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. And until next time, follow the code of the Fish Nerd. Spawn early and often.
Avoid free lunches with strings attached.
Swim against the current every chance you get.